everybody. My name's Alex Simpson. I am the Associate Director of the California Innocence Project, and I am extremely happy and thankful to speak to the people here on this Zoom call about these important issues and topics of today. Just by way of introduction, we've got a couple of people on the line. Alexandra Jordan Butler is our digital marketing strategist at the California Innocence Project. I've also got Alyssa Biercole, who's our litigation coordinator, and one of our exonerees, Guy Miles, who has done a number of years in prison for a crime that somebody else committed. We were extremely thankful that we were able to get Guy's conviction reversed. I'm going to have Alyssa, one of his star attorneys, talk about that experience and about the entirety of the difficulties that we had and how that struggle informs some of the topics and issues that we're talking about today. I really thank everybody for participating, for listening, and I'm going to leave all the rest of it to Alyssa. Oh, and I have one last thing. I'm sorry. We also have Timothy Atkins, who is another exoneree, I'm going to be talking to him about his case and his perspective, his issues about these important topics in a little bit. Alyssa, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks so much, Alex. As Alex said, I am the litigation coordinator at the California Innocence Project, and I have been working there since 2006, first as a student and then as a lawyer in 2008. And that's when I started working on Guy's case. He was one of the original cases assigned to me, and it took quite a bit of time to get his conviction reversed. In fact, it took 8 years of me working on the case, but unfortunately 19 years of Guy being incarcerated for this crime he didn't do. Guy's case is relatively simple. Two guys go in and rob for lack of a better word, like a money tree type of location, a check cashing place. And the third person is a getaway driver who is supposed to drive the robbers away from the robbery. The two men who went inside were armed. They stole about $400 worth of cash and some checks that they would never be able to cash. And they get back to the car and their getaway driver is nowhere to be found. So it turns out that the getaway driver had gone shopping in a neighboring auto parts store at the time. And the two other perpetrators are out by the car trying to get his attention, like, hey, we gotta go, we gotta go. And the guy comes out, the three of them take off, and that's the crime. So leads were pretty slim. The way that this comes down to an identification of Guy Miles was that the getaway driver had actually gotten a loan from the check cashing place on the car that he used as a getaway car. He was easily identified because he had been shopping for car parts for a very unique car at the time of the crime. So cops were pretty quickly able to determine who the getaway driver was. Now, what they did after this really kind of went off the rails. They have no idea who perp numbers 2 and 3 are, so they take photo lineup after photo lineup and just put anybody's picture in there who lived in the same neighborhood as him, who associated with him, and just showed them to the witnesses and hoped that they could get some identifications. And the eyewitnesses picked out numerous people as having committed the crimes. There was actually a positive identification in a lineup before the witnesses saw the lineup with Guy Miles in it. But eventually, when we get to Guy Miles's lineup, which was lineup H, one witness identified him. The second witness said, kind of looks like him, but also kind of looks like number 5. And that's it. That's all it takes for you to lose your life in California. And this case went to trial, and those witnesses ended up identifying Guy, even though one of them had serious doubts about her identification at trial. In fact, got off the stand and looked at him in every direction and said, I don't think that's him. But after a little meeting with the prosecutor in the hallway, all of a sudden her tune changed and, oh yeah, that is him. And that's it. I mean, Guy went to prison to serve a 75 years to life sentence. Now, if he were white, we know that sentence would have been a lot less. And that's where his fight started. He fought and he fought, and he eventually got a hold of the California Innocence Project, and together we were able to solve this crime, and we convinced the courts, and he was released, and now he's a free man. And so I want to kind of talk to you a little bit, Guy, about your journey with your wrongful conviction. I know it's tough and it sucks to kind of go back over these things too. But so thank you so much for being here. So
No
I just want to go kind of way back to the beginning. What was going through your mind when the cops arrested you for this crime? What were you thinking?
A whole lot of things. At first, I thought it was just a joke. Um, I thought it was, I really didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to make of it. All I know is I was being arrested for something that happened in Orange County. And it kind of baffled me that it was Orange County because I had not been there. I had never been to Orange County. So, I was getting arrested from a county that I had never been to before. So at that point, I really didn't know what was going on and why I was being arrested. So,
At what point did that change for you? At what point were you like, oh God, this is not a joke?
Oh, when they put me in a holding cell and told me they had booked me for a robbery, and I explained to the officer, the detective that was handling the case, that I had never been to Orange County. So, you definitely have the wrong guy. And, he just kept saying, oh, we'll see what happens. And, it was just at that point I knew, hey, I'm in some trouble.
Let's fast forward a little bit. So you get arrested and now you're going to go to your arraignment. So you're pulled into the courthouse. Did anything strike you about the racial composition of people in the courthouse at the time that gave you any impressions about how this might go?
Oh yeah, it was scary. It was a black man in an all white courtroom. My attorney at that time was white. The judge was white. Everything in the courtroom was white. So, I really knew I was in trouble.
Was it, and what was the feeling like as far as being the only Black person? Was that what was kind of going through your head at that time?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so being the only Black person in the courtroom, how did that make you feel, if you could elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, it was scary. I mean, intimidating. Being, I come from a majority Black community, we hear these stories all the time. So to be faced with that, it was intimidating, and very scary.
Thinking about how you were saying that, you hear about these stories all the time, people being picked up for things they didn't do. What was your thought process before you were arrested for this crime, and then after you were an innocent person facing charges?
Well, I mean, before I knew it was going to be easy for me to get convicted, being that I was in Orange County. Orange County was a predominantly all white county. So, the chances of me walking out of there was probably slim to none. Didn't matter, innocent, not. And afterwards, it was a joyful feeling. It was, it was just the first, I can just remember that first day walking through the hallway, meeting Justin at the door and seeing you guys out there just waiting on me, giving me hugs. It was just a joyful day, a day that I had been waiting for 19 years. And I would never forget that day.
Based on your experience, you spent quite a bit of time incarcerated. Did you ever come across other people who were wrongfully convicted?
Definitely. I mean, we would walk the yard. In prison, a lot of people say they're innocent, but after listening to their story, you can say, you're not really so innocent, So, but I have met a couple people that I believe that was 100% innocent, just listening to their story based on my story too. So, yeah.
If you have any feelings about whether, wrongful convictions are impacting Black communities or minority communities more, based on your experience?
Definitely. I think we're more at a disadvantage than most, coming from a Black community, being a Black person, a Black man. There's certain things you learn about just growing up, either from your parents, from your grandparents, from family and friends, just kind of warning you that you are a Black man. So, you have to be careful the way you walk. I've been in trouble a few times, but this here, it took the case. Getting caught up in this right here, especially for something I didn't do. So,
and what's your experience with how wrongful convictions impact the community at large? Family members who are of the wrongfully convicted person, and friends, and the community in general.
And that's the thing. That's what a lot of people don't understand that it impacts not only the person being convicted, but their families. Like my mother, she went through so much, so many breakdowns. My father, health wise, deteriorated trying to fight for me to get out, selling their house, trying to get me an attorney, trying to get people to come and pay attention to my case, family members, marching with you guys, trying to make noise just to, again, bring attention to the case. So it definitely impacts not only me, but the people around me.
What are your thoughts? I want to switch gears a little bit, but what are your thoughts about the people who made mistakes in your case? Like the detective who did those terrible photo lineups, or the eyewitness who identified you even though she had doubts. What are your thoughts about holding people accountable for those types of mistakes in these wrongful conviction cases?
They definitely need to be held accountable. Detective Montgomery, he handled that case from day one. I really believe he thought I was the person at first, but I think he would have stopped at nothing to just convict anybody or to get somebody convicted. I think once he found out, because reading his statements, I believed he thought later on that it wasn't me. Then after talking to him, after doing DNA, I knew he knew it wasn't me. And then he proceeded. He kept going. He kept going. Although pushed by the district attorney's office, he still is an individual, and he could have made his own choice by saying, hey, this is not the guy. I'm sure this is not the guy by now. So I think he should be held accountable. And I think every person that was involved that knew that I was innocent should be held accountable. Karen Walk, the DA that originally prosecuted the case, no doubt she knew I was innocent. I had a couple conference calls, a couple meetings with her where she told me, hey, I believe you're innocent, but you're good for it. Meaning that, hey, I had trouble in the past, so you're a good candidate for this case. We can just go ahead and push and, get you convicted of this. Basically, that's what she was saying.
What, and I think me and your segment is running out of a little bit of time right now, but I just kind of want to talk to you about your experience after you were released, and how are you doing, and what are you doing, and how is life?
It was definitely hard when I got out. Just being around my family, seeing them happy, just realizing how much they were hurt, how much they missed me. Fighting to make ends meet, trying to find a job. It was hard. It was hard, but now I'm doing better. Have a new fiance. It was hard, but now life is definitely better. It's definitely better. Sure, you already knew this was gonna happen, but
I don't have any more questions now.
Well, thank you so much, Guy, for sharing all of the perspective and the experiences that you have about this. This is something that we often talk about as, you are the best person to be asking these types of things, because nobody else here understands the particular struggles and the particular perspective that you have. So I really thank you for participating in this. This is what Wrongful Conviction Day is all about.
Thank you. Appreciate.
So the next person that we're going to be talking to today is Timothy Atkins. Tim was wrongfully convicted and served 23 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. He is a husband, a father, a wrongfully convicted individual. He's been out of prison since 2007. He was convicted of murdering an individual in the Venice area of Los Angeles. He had, unfortunately, a co-defendant who both of them were attacked while they were in custody. His co-defendant died. Tim survived and was ultimately convicted of this murder. So the next person that we're going to be talking to is Tim Atkins. Tim was wrongfully convicted of a murder in the Venice area of Los Angeles in the 1980s. He actually did 23 years in prison for a crime that somebody else committed. And the case revolved around one primary witness who said at Tim's preliminary hearing that Tim had confessed to having committed the crime that evening to her. The reason I say preliminary hearing is because she did not appear at trial. We found this witness more than 20 years after she gave her statement to police. Her explanation of the events was that she was told by the police that they believed that she knew that who committed this crime. They sat her in the interrogation room and they said that she wasn't going to leave unless she gave them a name of the perpetrator. The person who was being interviewed by the police decided that the only way that she was going to get out of that room was to give a name, regardless of whether or not she knew anything. And so she fabricated this story and implicated Tim. Unfortunately, there was another co-defendant in Tim's case. That person and Tim were both attacked while they were awaiting trial in the Los Angeles jail. Unfortunately, Tim's co-defendant did not survive. Tim survived the attack, was put on trial, and was ultimately convicted based on the statement of this person who later on said she entirely fabricated it. Tim, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us about your case and about your thoughts on this important issue. I'd like to ask you some questions about, first of all, let me just ask you, when you're thinking back to how that case went and how that trial went, what are your thoughts about how the police and the prosecution handled that case?
I mean, from the beginning, I don't feel like they handled the case like they were supposed to. I believe that they were just trying to get anybody to take the case so they can get rid of the case. Because if going back, if you see the description that the eyewitness gave the police, it didn't even match me. You know, and not only that, you know, if they had clear-cut evidence, you know, that it was me or whoever, you wouldn't buffalo a witness and tell a witness you're going to hold them in the police station until they give you a name. You can't do that. You know, yeah. That's crazy. You know, from the beginning, in preliminary hearing, the DA asked the surviving victim, did she see the people in the courtroom that robbed her and shot her husband? And she was looking around the courtroom. She couldn't even identify me. They took a recess and took her outside. And when they brought her back in, she pointed at me. You know, and so on that alone, you know, I thought that the judge was going to throw that out, because it ain't no question in my mind that they took her out in the hallway and told her that, you know, it's the guy in the orange jumpsuit, because they asked her in open court and she couldn't even point at me. My daddy told me that she was looking at him.
Yeah.
You know, so the case was messed up from the beginning. I mean, it's unfortunate that somebody lost their life. You know, that alone, you know, is, I feel for the surviving victim and her husband, but that don't mean just give me a case or just give anybody a case that's innocent. You know, and that's what happened. You know, and then Ricky Evans, my co-defendant, he ended up in jail with me, and he ended up getting killed while we was awaiting trial.
Yeah. So we're talking about a lot of different things in terms of, I think, what went wrong in your case. There's the police action and investigation where they're trying to talk to this witness and basically coercing her into implicating you. Right. We're talking about the prosecutors who are going forward with the case, even when they know that the witness is not identifying you. And we're also talking about something that's sadly very difficult in your case, which is that the people in the jail not protecting you and your co-defendant
Right.
in the lead up to the trial. So let's break some of that down. In terms of the police, when you think about accountability for what happened in your case, what does that look like to you? What would you want to see that's different in the case?
I mean, and what I would like to see different in the case, when prosecutors get cases, and a lot of prosecutors been in the business for 20, 30 years, you know, and it's a job, and I understand it. But the problem with everything is that they took an oath. They took an oath to uphold justice,
Mm-hmm.
and when sometimes they get cases on their desk that they know isn't right, they move forward with it anyway. You know,
Yeah.
and I think it's wrong. You know, that's why we've been having so many problems with the justice system. You got so many people getting out of jail, being innocent. You got people spending 30, 40 years in jail for crimes they didn't commit. You know, and it's foul. You know, not only that, we didn't. People have been executed for crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no accountability, and especially with the police. You know, in the 80s, they was just giving people cases that they know was innocent. You know, and nothing happened to them because they didn't care. It's about closing the books on cases. I don't know if they receive pressure, you know, from people that's over them or whatever, but they just close the books on people because in a lot of cases they feel like don't nobody care about these individuals anyway.
Yeah.
You know, according to their backgrounds, some of them gang members or whatever, you know, and they feel like people's lives are expendable, and it's wrong.
Do you have any kind of sense of, well, one of the things that I think is very difficult to understand in the case is why the prosecutor would want to go forward when we have a witness who's very clearly not to identify you. What was going through your mind when she couldn't identify you at the preliminary hearing?
I mean, from the beginning, you know, I knew I was innocent. I had absolutely nothing to do with the case, and I thought that when she couldn't identify me, that they was going to drop the case, but they didn't. You know, they took her in the hallway and brought her back in, and then she pointed me out. You know, and I wasn't able to understand to this day how they was able to get away with that.
Yeah.
You know, how the judge even allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
So obviously there's another part of it too, which is, you know, what is the role of the court? If the judge sees this type of thing, shouldn't the judge step in and say, this is no good?
I mean, one would think that the judge would step in and say something, but he didn't. You know, he allowed that to happen. If if I'm a prosecutor and I ask the person in open court, do you see the people, the individuals in here that robbed you or killed your husband, and the person who we have in custody is sitting right here next to his lawyer, and you can't identify this man? I can't take you out in the hallway and bring you back in and then you identify him. You know, we all know what happened when that happened.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't identify somebody in open court, then that means that you really don't know.
Right. Thinking to some of the things I know you and I have talked about, some of the more recent protests about the George Floyd protests and Breonna Taylor, and some of these have to do with the frustration that people feel that regardless of what happens, regardless of what an officer does, there never seems to be any punishment or prosecution. You know, what do you think about what's going on recently in terms of accountability?
I mean, you know, I grew up in Venice was a ghetto when I was growing up, and from the beginning, as long as I can remember, there's never been accountability. If it wasn't for cell phone cameras or whatever we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah.
You know, and people believe, and I found this out in court, people have a tendency of believing anything that the police say, you know, not understanding and realizing that the police are human beings just like everybody else. They just have a different job than everybody. They lie, steal, cheat. They do the same thing other people do. You know, in court, it used to be that their word was gold, and whatever come out their mouth, that's what it is. But now they finding out that the police lie all the time. You know, they done kill people, they break the law, they do all kind of stuff. You know, they even steal out of evidence rooms. You know, they human beings. They susceptible to the same things that everybody else does. So as I said, if it wasn't for these cell phone cameras, we wouldn't even have these conversations about Breonna Taylor and all these people, because they wouldn't care. It'll still be business as usual. This stuff been going on for years. This ain't just started happening. You know, it just hit the limelight because people started videotaping it and documenting. But this been going on for years. They've been killing people. They've been doing all kind of foul stuff. You know,
do you think that this is because now there's more recording, there's more, do you have hope that there's going to be more accountability for police in doing these bad things?
I mean, one would hope so, because if it's not, then I believe things are going to get worse than what they are, as far as people being fed up and, you know, people acting out doing stupid stuff. I mean, you know, I had a conversation with somebody about 2-3 weeks ago, and they were talking about the police and how foul they is. But, you know, and I was explaining to them, we need law enforcement, because without that, it'd be total anarchy. You know, I don't care who you will, you wouldn't be able to protect your family or whatever. So we need that presence. But we need officers that's going to do their job. You understand what I'm saying? We don't need officers that go out here and create chaos, you know, and break the law. We need people that truly believe in the oath that they took, and that's going to come out here and perform their duties as they should, instead of being criminals. Because a lot of those guys, if you look at them, they you know, they act like thugs. You know, like it's a whole entire different game. And that's not what the taxpayers pay you for.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you for your time and for your thoughts on this. Wrongful Conviction Day this year is all about trying to address some of these issues, and, you know, and this concept of accountability. It's really something that I know is really important. And so I really thank you for talking to us today.
Oh, no problem, Alex.
So that wraps it up for the California Innocence Project. Thank you so much to Guy Miles, to Alyssa Bierkel, to Alexandra Butler, and to Tim Atkins for sitting down and talking about these issues. This is an incredibly important topic for Wrongful Conviction Day. I'm really thankful for everybody's thoughts and participation. Thank you so much.